also here live in YouTube. Hopefully it's better here, and we got sound. Stream held. I hope I can hear myself now. This should be good. Yes. Okay, so this is okay. Yes, now it's good. Cool. Good. Cool. Thanks for joining. Yes, my name is Daniel, and hopefully we are good to go. And sound is okay, right? Good. So yes, we are expanding. Always when you start up something, there's good technical issues. Anyway, cool. I hope you hear me and sounds good. But yes, today I wanted to talk about how do you actually govern iFlows, how do you make them better, how do you continuously work on these things. And I was triggered by a call with a customer the other day where we talked about this, and it was like, okay, there's actually quite a lot of things that is important in this scenario. I wanted to convey a little of this today. You're good, right? So that's what this is going about. If you have questions, comments, please please put them into the chat, and also just say hi. I really appreciate it. And if there are some of these things that you do, also write it, or something I forgot. There is definitely different ways you can do this. So why do you want to improve the way we are dealing with governance? I guess it's the fact that a lot of places you are more than just one integration developers. There's a lot of things that you need to consider, and this is part of the fact that is important. And the more you are, the more complicated it becomes, and the more things you need to work about. It can either, and I guess the things that makes it even more complicated is the fact whenever you have some external consulting company that is a part of some other projects that need to do some work on your system, you don't really have the same way of giving them correct access and being able to work on certain scenarios, and that is obviously also of an importance for such scenarios. We will cover two things today. We will both cover some automatic steps and also some manual steps, because I don't think you can avoid it all. So what triggered this? So I guess this was also what triggered the client we talked with, was the fact that SAP talked about they have these guidelines coming out, and that is an important part of this, and you need somehow to figure out, okay, so how do we actually work with these scenarios in a good way. They talked about it at the last whatever SAP Integration Suite update and showed what this could do. There's a lot more to this than going on. It is a good start. I'm not sure what the roadmap is, but there's these 5 rules. Probably I would love to see a few more rules, but I don't know what the timeline is for these things. And anyway, no matter how many rules, etc., that will be created, there is going to be other ways that you need to govern these things, as I see it, because there's more criticalities, and I think that's what the same you see in a lot of other places. You have different tools that does different things in this. So yes, that's a part of the idea. We want to give you some more options. And there's a lot of other options that you can look at, and we'll try to go through some of these. If there's something that's missing, please add it. There is obviously some different terminology around these things. I'll try to cover all these in somewhat this order, and then we will have a look. And yes, So I guess the first thing is CPI lint. I think that is probably the most precise tool for giving you analysis of your CPI flow. It's easy to define rules for your integration. What should be checked? What's the reasons? And give you a list of errors for these things. And obviously that is, well, it's free open source. You can contribute, create your own rules, and add them to it. So I think that is definitely a place to start, where you can define a lot of these rules. And I think it would also be pretty simple to add these same kind of rules that SAP has done into this, so you'd also get the rules there if they're not there. Then there's also so as I see it, you need different types of validations, tests, etc., to be able to ensure that this works on. Because it's one thing if you have one developer working on this, but you need to be constantly delivering this. You need to support this, and that's why you need different processes in place to handle these scenarios. And this is what this is about. And if you have testing that would enable you to run tests on specific scenario, it makes it a lot easier if you can just press a button and you can check that some of the Groovy code works as expected. And an example of this is here we have a repository. We'll talk a lot more about this. We have here a script, and we have generated some test cases in our FIGAF tool that then becomes into Groovy tests that we can then run. And this would allow us to run these, and we would be able to see, does this actually work? And here we can see that we are getting some different errors on some different properties. So we have to update the test case. Well, obviously we need to check what's going on. And that's the whole part about creating test cases. We need to constantly update these to make sure it is relevant and it works correctly. So that's the unit test. There's also other frameworks that you can use and set up to run this. And I think a main part of this is you have to have all your iFlows in a Git repository, because then you can trigger and run these in a smooth way. Static code tag check or whatever different type of analysis that you can run. There's SonarQube, there's Codana, that enable you to check the Groovy code that you have written to see, does this follow normal good practices, naming conventions, etc. in the specific Groovy area. It obviously matters how much functionality you have in Groovy, which tool you would use. But the idea is you check the code with this, and then you get some extra input about what can be improved, what's the problems with these things. One of the things that we have found is that the use of Git pipelines makes it easier to integrate these things. So we are obviously a bit spoiled in the FIGAF with the FIGAF tool. We can, so whenever someone is changing an iFlow, we can update the Git repository with that information without a lot of extra work. And that means that every time an iFlow is updated, we can actually run some of these pipelines, making it a lot easier for us to ensure that data is always valid. Yeah, and since we've run on so we did create some pipelines, and let's just see if I actually got to those. I closed it. Let me just see here. And what we have done in this example here is, so in this Git process, we have added a CPI helper or CPI lint rule, and this is what obviously you need to define, and you probably should create some more rules than this. Then we have created this pipeline validation that just every time you do a commit will check certain things. So let me just check here. So, oh, wrong screen here. So there are some different checks in, and you can find this also in on the FIGAF site if you search for this. And just go through the different commits and check what's the difference and then update it. Now, this is created for GitHub, but you can create the same thing for whatever tool you need. And that no matter if you're using the FigAv tool to synchronize to your Git repository, you have your own way of synchronizing. This would be a great way to ensure that you have the correct validation for it. Good. Testing. I've been talking about test for 8 years, and that's why I believe it is really important for you to have a good way of testing these scenarios. And obviously, the more you're able to test, the better, because yeah, if you can test, you can ensure that you do not break something that was not intentionally for you to break, giving you a much better overview of what's actually going on with this. And once you have updated your test cases, you can just simply take these scenarios and use them as a part of the transport validation to say, okay, before I transport this, I know that my test case is valid and it is a good way to do it. So it's also something that makes it easier for someone to take over the code. They can run all the test case and see what the iFlow is supposed to do. So that's why I think testing is an important part of the governance. Naming validation is also a way or something you need to figure out how to do, and I think you need to have a way of validating the names that you are using for these things. In the FigAv tool, we do have a limited check for these things, so it can check for the iFlow name if it follows certain criteria, and if it does, then it will give you some input about what's going on. We also have tagging rules, and this is something that correlates a lot with, for instance, CPI helper, but can give you a different, broader view of your integration. So the idea here is, well, we started to create this because we needed to do better validation of PIPO landscapes. And the way we wanted to do this was we wanted to be able to search in CPI or in PI payloads for certain criteria using regex or XPath. And then that was pretty easy also to add to CPI iFlow. So you can search the CPI iFlow model to check for certain criteria. Here we're checking if there's a property that is called encryption and the value is FTP. And that would mean that if we are creating a rule for this, then in the FigAv tool, you will then have the tagging rules. And here you can see that there is 333 iFlow that has FTP in it. So I think there's someone that is talking about FTP, and they'll probably not see that many scenarios on it. But that is a way to get some more details about what's actually going on with your integrations. Good, so that was one thing. And yeah, it is really easy to find your own rules for this, and I think that's the important part of this, that you as an architect should be able to say, okay, this is something that's bad, I want to create a rule for it so we know what to look out for and one can describe how to go around and what's the other thing. Then that was some of the automated tools that you can actually use for these scenarios. And that's something that I've forgotten, just put them into the chat. I'd like to hear your take on some of these things and what could be improved here, because yeah, it's my list what we have encountered and seen, and that's, well, a basis for it. But once you have done all the automated tests, and that obviously needs to somehow be built into an automated process that would enable you to work with these scenarios without having to deal with it manually. So that's, yeah, wants to give you users a way of handling these things. Yes, Pascal, we do have a basic set of tagging rules that you can apply. I'll just so there you can find these here. For now, these so you just download this this archive here, and let me just put it into the chat. So primarily it's focused for PI to CPI migrations, but there's also a few ones for the other ones for PI to thing. Yes. So yeah, that's the tagging rules scenario. Yes, good. But let's talk about the manual process and what you need to do there. And I think that is obviously also an important topic because we want to be able to actually give some more details. And I just put one slide in here, but obviously there's multiple different steps in. And I just wanted to give you some idea about how we can do it here. So in the FIGAF tool, we have now I've made a change here for an iFlow, and I can then go and I can synchronize this to FIGAF. And that would mean that FIGAF would have this as a version. We can go in and we can check all the artifacts that is a part of this. What happens is whenever we commit this, this will go into the Git repository. And then at the Git repository, we would also run this pipeline. And that means we can go here, we can then see this pipeline validation status. So we can see that there's a bit old one right now. And we can see here that there is something about a field flow description that's wrong. And then we have something about some of the tests. So we also wanted to create one for unit tests, but there's something we need to fix around that. Good. What happens is if I am as a developer want to transport this, I will go here and I will go and assign to a ticket. Check governance. Framework, we can select which landscape we want to be doing it at. We can obviously link it to some Jira or ServiceNow, whatever issues we have. And yeah, for the tagging rules, if you find something that we need to improve, or if you find your own rules, share them with us. We can add it, and that makes it a lot easier for the community to just take these rules and then start using them and delete the ones they don't want. Okay. So here, when I am, as a developer, want to create a transport, I can go in and I can check the test cases we have for this, and we can see we have some test cases here. Just take one of the test cases, we can then run it, and this will check that we rerun this message and we will get the result and we will be able to see what is actually going on here. This will probably take a little while, so we can see the message has been sent, but we have not received the outgoing messages yet. It's all in error. So let's see what's the diff here. So it is a lot of new properties that has been added. We can easily just go and ignore those and compare it. So obviously this is a bit fast check to see what's going on with this. Obviously you need to go through this and check the errors, figure out what's actually wrong with this anyway. As a developer, I can go and start the transport. And now as a developer, we do have some things here. So we can go in here, we can see the pipeline that was added whenever we did our last commit, and we can see that that was the timeline for it. We can see the rule here on the arrow, and that makes it easier for us to see, okay, there's actually a problem with these things, so we need to figure out how to deal with this. As a developer, I can also go in and I can see what systems is auto replaced, or I can go in and configure something. So we can copy our configuration object. So there's a lot of things that you can do here to simplify the steps. So I'm still a developer. I can go in and I can work with these scenarios. I can also check a number of different scenarios here. We have one here, so we can look here at the diff BPML with FIGAF. I think it's this one, BPM model viewer, where we can see what is the difference between the current iFlow and the one we want to deliver. If there were any differences, we also have one down here. Let's see if it works now. Where we can actually go in and we can see here all the externalized parameters. So we can see here that there's new key that is never used. So obviously I need to remove this before I should be submitting this again. I can also see that this mock order is used in this specific flow step. So that also makes it a lot easier for me to figure out what's going on with these scenarios. And obviously I can go and I can, or not obviously, but I can go and I can search for, so I can see where something governance was used here in this scenario. Really useful type governance value, really useful way to check what's going on here. And we can use the same model to view what's the difference. We also have diff.html that will just give you the code changes between one and another version. So I should have transported this in advance. Then I would be able to see just the highlight of things that were different. Anyway, now I can send it to approval, and now as an approver, you obviously should not be able to approve your own things. It should be a third-party reviewer, and that's also supported in the tool. And as an approver, I now have the full capability to compare, do all the same things. As done, I can approve it, and then I have taken all this consideration about what's going on, and now I can import it. And that is really the larger concept of this. We wanted to make it easier to deliver these things. Actually, if you look here, we actually have one thing that is scheduled that would allow you to import this on Thursday at 5 o'clock or whatever you have your window for importing things. So you don't need to go and log into this. This is something that's coming out in a release shortly, just to give you a heads up that there's something going on. That was just a little about how the FIGAF tool can simplify this delivery process from end to end, making it a lot easier for you to work with these scenarios. If you have rule or questions, just put them into the chat. And this is you don't press a magic button and then you got everything good running and all your governance will be solved. It is going to be an iterative process where you can go through and check certain criteria about what's actually going on, what are the scenarios that you want to be working on, and then the more you know, and the more you work on it, the more it'll become better as time goes. I guess the main thing is you should focus on working on a platform that would enable you to scale this to the level that you actually need. So yeah, it's okay to just start with at least ensuring that the iFlow follows the standard design guidelines, and that you take some consideration and say, okay, it is important that this, or there's actually a reason why we do not follow this criteria, and if it's you have taken that consideration, fine, then you can go and transport it. I would say that the FIGAF tool is probably one of the best tools that would enable you to go around and cover all of this end to end. You obviously need to have Git also in as a part of this, where you can run these different types of pipelines in it. So that will give you a good scenario for it. if you want to look for migration, so we have just scheduled a webinar where we will go in, and I'll just put in the link here in the chat, where we will cover more details about what's actually, or how you can work with migration of pipelines, how you can make the process easier. We are really soon releasing an update of the Gov migration tool that would enable you to migrate into pipelines just as easy as you now can with migrating to individual iFlows. And for now, I've seen some of this details, and it looks really good. But yes, the main topic is obviously this governance. I hope you had some, or you found it useful. You could see something that you can improve in your own scenario, something that was better. Please put your comments, some ideas about what can be improved, because there is definitely a lot more scenarios that you can do. And I guess that maybe is also something about the challenge that we as enterprise developers, architects, have some kind of a limit on what we are capable of, what's possible, whereas in a more simpler world, it will be a lot easier to just go and say, okay, go do these things, run with these scenarios. That would simplify the way that, or it's easier to get some new tools that can help you in small ways, whereas in an enterprise organization, there's a lot of obstacles to get the right tools and just say, okay, this, we want to use this for these things. Then you end up with some open source projects that would be able to do these kind of things. I hope you find this useful. If there's questions, comments, just put them into the chat. I'll try to see if I can follow on. And there's nothing over here in the YouTube. Let's see if there's something that has been hiding. Yes. But I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for attending. Yeah, I guess that was all I wanted to cover today. But yeah, if you have questions, comments, just ping me, and I'll try to reply as well as I can. Thanks for attending. And 3